I'm guessing it wasn't too much of a surprise for you that this flight didn't take off. We always knew this was going to go down to the wire, and we always knew that there were going to be human rights court challenges. Does it surprise you at all that the flight didn't take off?
It doesn't. I seem to recall that on your launch program not so long ago, I said it was never going to be easy. Well, the important thing now is for the government to pursue its policy and for Priti Patel to do what she says she's going to do and start preparing for the next flight. The one thing that really last night did that gets to me is the fact that the traffickers, frankly, will have dropped off to sleep with the ka-chink of the cash registers ringing in their ears. Yeah. That's what the message is that is being sent out with the Human Rights Court's decision last night. And it seems that what is satisfactory, what is okay for our courts, it isn't for the European Court of Human Rights.
And I think a lot of those human rights lawyers who were bringing those cases on behalf of some of those those channel migrants who were going to be sent to Rwanda over the last few days, they were quite surprised by some of those rulings. I was certainly quite surprised that the High Court, the Appeal Court, the Supreme Court all upheld the right of the government to put these people on those flights and ruled that it was safe for them. Yesterday, the European Court of Human Rights, though, and bearing in mind, this is not the European Court of Justice, it's not part of the EU, we're still part of the European Convention on Human Rights, and it's 47 Indeed. Countries, and this is the one in Strasbourg. The court ruled that one particular Iraqi man, KN, as all we know him by, faced a real risk of irreversible harm if he was sent to Kigali, the Rwandan capital. Also, the press concerns that there was no legal mechanism for the return of these people if, in a month's time, when the High Court looks at the conditions and the plans for people in Rwanda, if a decision is made that actually this flight shouldn't go ahead, for that man and others to be returned. And they want to await the High Court decision. So this does leave open the idea that actually if the High Court rule looks at this and says, actually, Rwanda is a safe country, the facilities they've been offered, goodness me, I've seen some of those on the telly. I mean, frankly, the facilities they're being offered are better than some of the hotels I've stayed in over the years, better than some people's homes here in the UK right now. So it is perfectly possible that these could take off. The reality is, though, there's always going to be another human rights challenge. We've had the Archbishop of Canterbury and all his bishops saying that this is an immoral policy. We've had Prince Charles privately saying, but let's face it, making sure it got out that he thought this was appalling. We've got the Labour and others all criticising. But the one thing none of these people ever do suggest is what the alternative is. Now, I don't think this is the greatest idea to come out of the Home Office, and my God, they've had some pretty bad ideas over the years. But what are the alternatives anyone is offering? Are we just going to keep having tens of thousands of migrants coming over on boats and they all get to stay here?
Yes, that's exactly what's going to happen if we don't start sending out the message that it won't work, jumping into dinghies and getting ashore here or getting onto a British vessel here. And you're absolutely right. Those who are against the whole process that has now been put in place have no alternatives. All they keep banging on about is safe routes, which when you look at closely is actually absurd. We've got plenty of safe routes. We've got 13 safe routes. Since 2004, something like 500,000 people have either arrived and sought refuge and been given it, or we've arranged for them as part of various schemes to come here to resettle and to relocate. So the systems are in place. The only thing we can do is actually make sure that those who set off to come here illegally, frankly, getting into a dangerous dinghy, risking your life, leaving from an unauthorized embarkation point on the other side, is of course illegal. Yeah. How anyone can suggest that it isn't?
I know, but you and I couldn't do it, so we wouldn't be arriving legally in this country if we did that, even though we're British passport holders. But this is the thing: a lot of people are saying, well, if on the human rights side, we need to provide these safe passages. People wouldn't do these terrible routes if there were safe routes. But a lot of the people coming on these routes are sort of people who, frankly, are unlikely to be approved on those legal routes, aren't they? Whenever we see the footage footage of these things when they've been edited down, we always have very, babies and toddlers and pregnant women, and it all looks awful. When you actually see the unedited footage, virtually everyone on these boats is a young, able-bodied man. The idea that these are the most desperate people who are most in need is absurd.
Well, 90% are male, 70% are under 40 adult men. Many of them have actually gone through safe countries. They're coming from a safe country. And not only that, they have actually, in most cases, destroyed their documents. Why would they do that if they're genuine, for goodness sake? So, yes, absolutely right. Those who are being sent to Rwanda have been carefully assessed, and I am sure that they're perfectly capable of going to a country that will treat them fairly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Rwanda is not, it's not the most ideal place to be sent in the world, but again, I do think an awful lot of the conversations about this seem to just be based on from the bleeding heart lefty liberals, actually, quite a racist view. It's Africa, it must be awful.
Well,
but when can I get back?
Julia, 30,000 Burundians have been, with the blessing of the UNHCR, the United Nations refugee organisation, have actually been sent to Rwanda. Over 500 have gone from Libya. So if it's all right for them and the UN says it's okay, why not for these
Very,
people?
very good point. When you mentioned a little bit earlier that a majority of these young men who come across on these boats are destroying their documents, is that something that you have worked, you've seen yourself, or is this officially a statistic that most of these men do that?
An official statistic, yeah. The majority of them, we did a paper not so long ago, the majority of them have actually arrived without documentation. So
we have no idea where they're from or who they are?
We have no idea. All we have is their word for who they are and why they want to come here.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's a massive concern for people. And the big issue also on this is that people who say, look, I'm worried about this. I'm concerned about, 300 migrants arriving yesterday. I'm worried about their safety on these rickety boats. Personally, I'm more worried about the babies that and the women. Indeed. Often they're being forced onto these boats by their menfolk. They don't get a say, a lot of these cultures, the women. And anyone who'd put their baby on a rickety boat like that, frankly, I mean, is a criminal already. But I'm worried about the people traffickers making all the money from this, more than they do from drugs. Worried about all of that. But there are lots of people who will say, but they're unhappy about the Rwanda flight option. What other options are there? What other things can be done? Because at the end of the day, we had 10,000 already have come to this country this year in this route. We've got 30,000 last year. There's predictions of up to 100,000 this year. Where are they all going to go?
Well, that's part of the problem with regards to the slowness of bringing people in where there are schemes in place, that we have to find homes for them. We have to make sure that they have the medical attention that they need. Children need to go to school. Yep. These arrangements have to be made. It's not simply a case of saying, right, here's 10,000 more, off you go. You can go into Britain. There's a lot more to it than that. That's why the 18,000 Afghans who've actually come here, 12,000 of them are still in hotels and still their homes being sought for them. That is why we've got to think carefully before we accept large numbers of people, and especially those people who, frankly, don't qualify, don't merit our support. And
Al Mehmet, Chairman of Migration Watch, thank you very much indeed for joining us.